Hey there, welcome to episode 43 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. Another solo episode, as is the norm, for the closing so soon of the 2023 calendar year. I'm recording this late on the evening of Thursday, December 21st, 2023. As I said, the year is coming to a close. Fitting it all in, today we will speak of working from Vegas, SWOT. Do you know what SWOT is? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Well, just in case you did not, I do have a link to the infamous, not a documentary, farcical Silicon Valley series on HBO. It's a QuickTime link. Jared explaining SWOT. I also have a quick article from Harvard Business Review, SWOT and the Eisenhower Matrix, the old EM. We can get to another show, but you can see where it fits into a process, and that's what we're here for today, the SWOT part. So yeah, check the show notes for some links, just two today. Plus, don't forget, your host, that's me. I do work for tips. I'm extending the tip jar across all but the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. That's a totally separate thing. But if anyone would like to support these shows, they are powered by coffee. You may buy me a coffee.com/Dan Hugo. I have my Ko-fi page on there, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. Buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. Also, the Dan Hugo profile page on Buy Me a Coffee has links to my various projects and audio shows and content and whatnot. So I kind of use that as a base that's out of band. It's not my blog. It's not a site that I maintain. So it's like a separate way to find. And if you happen to want to put some money towards my next pound or two of fresh coffee beans, or not so fresh, I did, in all honesty, use the last contribution to purchase 2.2 pounds of Lavazza coffee beans. So there we go. I speak the truth. So WFV, working from Vegas, that could mean you have your startup here or your company here. That could mean that your company is somewhere else and you are here. It could mean that none of you are here and you come to Vegas sometimes and work here temporarily. That last one is actually a pretty good idea, in my opinion. But working from Vegas, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? There are many, many possibilities for each of those, usually represented on a grid, a 2x2 grid, sometimes with note cards, sometimes with a dry erase markers. There are many possibilities. So you could do any of those things, and your scenario may vary. And one of the first things that will vary significantly is if you are creating a company that will truly be based in Vegas. If you are opening a restaurant or a bar or a retail establishment or a service industry related consultancy or a service business that serves the service industry or service industry adjacent, it will probably benefit you more to be based in the greater Vegas area. But if you are building something that enables remote work, you can certainly consider yourself being remote. You can consider some of your team being remote, all of your team being remote. I've been saying this for all of the 10 years that I've lived here in the greater Vegas area. You can come to Vegas and then you can go back home. So, in fact, my first job working for, not my first job, but the job I had when I first moved to Vegas, I moved to Vegas in August of 2013. And I started working with Intel from Vegas, and I was the only Intel employee in officially February 14th, 16th, 2014, somewhere in the middle of February. So I was working from Vegas with everyone else I worked with not in Vegas. So that is one of the scenarios. Not one that today the list I've come up with is really aimed at more an entrepreneur who can be in Vegas and has a team who can be in Vegas but could be somewhere else. So I'm not really looking at bar, restaurant industry, hospitality in general, but that's what other episodes of this fine program are for. So we're not focusing on tech necessarily. It is certainly possible to do things that are, I mean, tech adjacent, you probably will use a laptop, right? So I'm not saying you have to use stone tools and eschew a watch in favor of a sundial on your wrist. But yeah, certainly my own background and my experience in this area specifically is tech related. So it will certainly have the smell of tech, but we can apply these in a variety of ways. And again, I would like very much in 2024 to explore some of these topics more closely and interactively with people on the ground, as I like to say, really doing these things. It's always easier to figure out how things work by talking to people who know how things work or experience how things work, as the case may be. So let's get started. Strengths, the S in SWOT, strengths. And again, I can't emphasize enough, this is my list. It could be very different from your list. Come on down for an episode sometime in the new year. We can go over all kinds of things. Strengths, approximately 40 million visitors annually, give or take, from all walks, all places, all various reasons, all reasons for coming here. So those are opportunities. That's a whole different section. But the strength of being in Vegas and engaging people in Vegas is that people come here from all over. Some of them actually stay. The population of Clark County, according to the 2020 census, is approximately 2.3 million. Maybe it's up to 2.4 million by now. But the LVCVA, which I have not linked to, maybe I'll throw a link in there. It's easy enough. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, will tell you the correct estimates that they have. As luck would have it, the November numbers were not published yet as of a couple of days ago. I will check. I'm going to say they're going to publish them in January. Strangely, the October numbers have been there, but November, the month that contains the Formula One race, they are not published yet. That's another show, another episode of this show, in fact. So the 40 million people, those are potential engagements, they're potential clients, customers, team members, co-founders, people that could try your product, people that could tell their friends back home about your services. So one of the strengths about being here, even occasionally, is the number of paths you will cross if you want to, and the lengths of those paths back to their points of origin where they can tell their friends. You can be the big fish. The Greater Vegas Pond is not that big, and I'm not making a water conservation joke. This is not Silicon Valley. You're not going to come here and find 10 other people doing the same exact startup you're trying to do. Probably. You have an opportunity to shine here. You can operate as a foreign corporation even. I'm not here to plug Vegas, by the way. This is just a SWOT list. It's a common analysis technique, very simple. You can come here and hang out. You can come here and be here every once in a while. Like I said, you can be a foreign corporation and not be based here specifically. People here are easily impressed by novel things. So if you talk a good game and you have a good story to back that up, maybe even a demo, you will just point them to your selfie catalog on Instagram, and you will almost certainly become someone of note. Your name will be bandied about. People will be excited that you are starting your company in Vegas. So you can leverage that, even if it's the fake it till you make it strategy. You can give a talk. You can drop names. You can make the little heart gesture with your hands, and you can dominate. So from your perspective, that's a strength. As an ecosystem, maybe a weakness. Hard to say. And third one, it's something of a wild, wild west here. Not to say there aren't entrepreneurs here, not to say there isn't innovation here at all, but novel ideas will face a certain amount of head scratching, a certain amount of head tilting, sort of a good luck with that. I've heard from many people many times just on the projects that I'm working on, like, yeah, that sounds really neat. I'm going to go over here now. They don't know quite what to make of this. So I have this little saying, more of a characterization of a locality. It's sort of animated, maybe done better in person if we were sitting at a coffee shop table. But I said, when I moved from Silicon Valley to Phoenix, Arizona. I said, you could be sitting in a coffee shop and yell, I have an idea. Nobody would give you a second look. And when I was living in Phoenix and having this experience, I said, if I was in Silicon Valley, anybody who said it, you're in a Starbucks or any coffee shop, I have an idea. You're going to get a little hush in the crowd. You're going to get a few people leaning in. Ooh, something up, something possibly cool. So you're the big fish in the wild, wild west, to mix metaphors. And if you have the focus and determination to make it happen, you can actually dominate here and take advantage of the fact that people, from your perspective, that people here are relatively easily impressed, especially if you're doing something interesting or unusual. They won't know what to make of it. And I'm not saying people are dumb. I'm just saying that the culture is easily impressed. They're not used to novel thinking as we have seen in Silicon Valley for decades. So there's more excitement. There's more awe, which is good. That can be healthy for you. You don't feel like you are the small fish in the big pond. So again, that's why it's a strength. It's because you can do a novel, creative thing here. Maybe it's tech. Maybe it's something else. You can offer a cool service, a novel way of doing something that people are already familiar with. The list goes on. So those are my list of strengths. There are more. I'm just going to try to keep it to 3 per. The weaknesses, there's a perception that innovation is strong here, but in fact, it is not necessarily true. Sort of based on one of the strengths I just mentioned, I think people see any innovation as a strength from their perspective, from the masses, right? Not picking on anyone in particular. So if you are doing something innovative, you may or may not be able to leverage a sort of a common base of thinking. It may be tricky to get people to jump on with your idea. It may be difficult to find collaborators, co-founders, talent, even service, consultants, advisors. Some people may not grok it because I think innovation is new here. The nice thing about new is that there's a road ahead to build. So this is a opportunity. Maybe that'll show up in the next block. The fun economy gets all the attention. That is just a fact of life, and I've said in several other episodes, this is totally okay. It would be like being in Silicon Valley and saying, why does the tech economy get all the attention? Because it does. And that's the way it is, because look around. Now, the end of the story, the part of the story they're in now where people are having some tough times and housing prices are crazy. But on the other hand, people are returning to Silicon Valley somewhat. People are moving to Texas as well. But there are things to be said about having an economy that is strong and and leaning into it, not pretending that it is not all it is meant to be. There are people in the greater Vegas area that embrace the fun economy. There's a pending trademark on that term, fun economy. So I'm going to use it as much as I can before that's granted. The fun economy gets a lot of attention. They'll tear up the strip. They will not with public funds necessarily, but there are hundreds of millions of dollars will be spent on building, tearing down again, building again, tearing down and then building, and then tearing that down again and building again. And all the while the roads are under construction. You can't get anywhere. But for the sake of the fun economy, even if you're sacrificing fun economy today by putting some tourists in a bad way, where are those trees at the Bellagio? But the fun economy does rule. Harsh reality, what if we spent a fraction of the money on the fun economy on innovation resources? Or education, even better. So the fun economy will get more attention. You can fly under the radar, or you can lean into the fun economy. Certainly there is the Blackfire Innovation Center with their, I think it's Zero Labs is one of the accelerator programs there. Maybe it's an incubator. So they focus on gaming and hospitality. Those are part of our fun economy. They're getting heavily into sports, exercise physiology, and related, oriented towards training, physicality. Professional sports has been added to the portfolio of fun economy components. So those are big things. So it's possible to lean into the fun economy directly or to make the most of it with those 40 million people that come here. But it is something to be aware of. It could be a weakness for some of the things that you want to do. I know it's a weakness for some of the things I want to do, because when you say things like hackathon, you get this look like, that's not a stadium. That's not a Formula One race car. That's not a Raider, nor a Golden Knight. Come back to me with a puck or a football. So something to be aware of. And there's a lack of innovation culture here. That's just a fact of life. It still needs some cultivation. So if you come here and you are doing anything that requires innovation, you should be proactively a part of that cultivation process. You should help to get people excited about doing new things. Novel ideas are the future. There are some gaps in not only the infrastructure, but also the government support of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that would be a part of the innovation culture, or vice versa. Connection with local talent. So that means education and talent development in general, people being excited about learning and learning about things that are exciting. So these are some things that are in a little bit of a chaotic state. That is a weakness across any economy, so it's something to be aware of, unless you're doing something directly in the fun economy, in which case you're probably talking more to the 40 million people that come here, not necessarily to the 2.3 million. On the other hand, you could also be completely remote, and you don't really have to concern yourself, and you can take advantage of the taxes and other things which are not in the strengths, but they're sort of gimmies. You know, you don't pay, there's no income tax here. Business taxes are very light. Basically, it's sales tax, and if you happen to be doing any gambling, if you're opening a casino, you'll have to pay some stuff there, or other traditional tourism fees and taxes and whatnot. But if you are operating a business here, it's pretty lucrative. Not quite Delaware, not quite Wyoming, but Texas, Nevada, Delaware, Wyoming, and Washington. Washington has sales tax, but no. Anyway, so there are various states that have that. So then you have to look at, what does Nevada offer? I cannot say it enough. The 40 million people that come here are a strength either way. They're part of the fun economy. They're the reason for the fun economy. They're also opportunities to engage people in the world that come to you. You don't have to go to them. So I will always say that that's a strength to be leaned into. But depending on what you're trying to accomplish, I think one of the weaknesses to really be aware of is some of the chaos involved and some of the gaps in our innovation culture, the need for real stewardship of an entrepreneurial ecosystem, fitting those things together, aligning goals, OKRs, KPIs with local government, city, county, state. Access to capital is always a challenge. The list goes on. So some of these are actually opportunities. If you view chaos as an opportunity, then these weaknesses could actually be places where you can make a difference. Maybe. Coincidentally, we're on to the opportunities block of the grid. If I were making a presentation in front of a dry erase or chalkboard, I would be pointing at the O right now. So I've mentioned a couple of things that are strengths or weaknesses, but are potential opportunities in either case. I think that's legal. So today, it is very difficult to reach the general public who may be interested in what you're doing. That sounds weird. We do have local media. We have different niche silos, if you will, insular silos of weird sort of silence between them. And I hit the microphone there, sorry. And that can be a challenge. But if there's a way to reach the general public, like, for example, if someone at the Innovator Vegas Foundation were to be working on a platform to make it easier to communicate with a smart city such as ours in novel ways, which will impress no one initially, to share information in a smarter way, making our smart city smarter, and focus that on entrepreneurialism, innovation. Let the legacy media that we have now focus on the Strip, crime, politics, crime, whichever is which, who's building which stadium, who's opening which casino and resort, which road is being torn up, etc. We have that. But if you're doing something innovative, it's very difficult to reach people, to be discovered. I've already done another episode this week of the FFS Talk Show on discovery and some of the challenges there. So being discovered is a challenge. If we can connect the general public and the visiting public, so that's 2.3 million and 40 million, give or take, it may be possible to gain some traction. And if you are a part of that connection, that bridge building, well, you could be a part of the success story at the end of it, or on the other side of the bridge, as it were. So given the predilection here for celebration of intent, that I have already mentioned, that people will be very excited about a novel idea, whether you're actually doing it or not. If you pitch it well, long before the accomplishment, they will be very excited, and you will attain a level of celebrity that you hadn't imagined would be possible in a bigger pond amongst larger fish. Right? So a creative entrepreneur could even do something as silly as throwing house parties to establish a reputation for whatever, but you attain a level of credibility and celebrity if you just play those cards right. No pun intended. So there's opportunity to shine locally, which you can take advantage of in various ways. For example, you will get support from all manner of, economic development staff and other companies, other startup founders, and so on. If you attain a certain level of celebrity, you will be connected to people, you'll be referred to people, you will be networked, you'll be networkable. People will hear about what you're doing. You will be introduced to people at various shows and events because you're celebrated. I will give you my own personal example of this. So I'm not looking in from outside. When I was an Intel employee, I was the only Intel employee in Nevada. It was during a time when the downtown project was happening. So there was a strong focus on not only tech, but certainly on tech companies, getting the word out and so on. So being the only Intel employee in the entire state, I was able to, as I used to tell people, the Intel business card, though it was quite flimsy, could open any door. So if you have a certain amount of notoriety, if you can toot your own horn, as they say, there's an opportunity to become, if you aren't already, not only the big fish, but a big fish that people know or who want to know. And that can be helpful. It's really hard to make a bad case or a case against something like that. So if everybody knows your name and you're not in Cheers, but wandering around the greater Vegas area trying to pursue your entrepreneurial innovation endeavors, that's not so bad. I've mentioned that there are 40 million people, give or take, visiting the greater Vegas area, usually for the fun economy, but the fun economy does include conventions and trade shows and so on. They're here to have fun and to attend a trade show at the same time, perhaps. So one of the opportunities, which I cannot emphasize enough, is the possibility of engaging with, and I already said it was an opportunity in the strengths area. That was the first point I mentioned. So the opportunity to engage not only people from remote locations who may find it easier to come to Vegas to work for you or to work with you or to offer their services when they're here. So the notion of being remote, coming to Vegas. I always tell this story as well. Intel Corporation they may still, I haven't actually looked, I have to be honest. I don't really keep track of Intel too closely so much anymore. The Intel Sales and Marketing Conference was always held in January-ish, January, February. Probably this year, not around Super Bowl time, but Intel Sales and Marketing people would come from around the globe. This is when Intel had about 100,000 employees. They were in 100 countries. They're all over the place. Bring all the sales and marketing people to Vegas, staying at the Venetian usually. They always get a block of rooms there, and the Palazzo for the executives. And you have private conferences. You tell them about new products. You do demonstrations. One of the years I was working with Intel, we put together a robot assembly track for people to be on if they were in IoT, anything with robotics. So the robot had sensors, it had motors, controlled by one of our products, the Edison. So we kind of pre-built them so that the sales and marketing people could snap together a few parts, screw in a couple of screws, and suddenly they're engineers. It really is that easy anyway. So if we could do something like that in general, if we can tell people that you don't necessarily need to relocate your business, but you can still be a part of our economy, and you can leverage the destination city that is Greater Vegas. It's bigger than a city, but there's actually real value there. And there are opportunities to not only leverage all the features here that are, there are gaps, as I already mentioned, in the weakness section, but leveraging the centrality. We have 155,000 hotel rooms. We have the fastest internet on the planet, through. Thank you, Enron. So again, not trying to market this out. I'm just trying, I'm an investor here too. I live here. I work here. I'm a part of this. So there are some things that are worth pointing out. There are some things that need to be fixed. So the opportunity, though, is to engage not only with the people here and to bring people that you're engaging with elsewhere to Vegas. It's a great place to have a meeting. But the 40 million people that come here, for example, CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, coming up on January 9th, the week of the 8th, actually. That's a lot of people to run into. It's a lot of them coming to you, so to speak. So it's a great way to see the world without going to the airport. And all these fun events. And it's never really too tricky to get people to come to Vegas. Sometimes there's the impression that, I don't want to go to Vegas. I only have bad experiences from going to trade shows and being tired and only seeing the strip. There's plenty of not strip things to do here. So when people come here and you develop a certain expertise, familiarity with the life beyond Las Vegas Boulevard, you win and you can become the go-to for the various people that you want to engage with. So there's an opportunity to reach that aha moment. When people come here, they had no idea this was going on here. You know the place like the back of your hand. You turn their drudgery of coming to Vegas again for yet another trade show into a good time. Very interesting, very fun. I didn't know about this. I didn't know that was there. I didn't know I could go shoot a machine gun and drive a Lamborghini around a track and then go have any of 25 different ethnicities on one street, et cetera, et cetera. So getting to know Vegas and turning that into engagement opportunities with the tons of people that come here is an opportunity. Vegas is an easy city to get to. It is a destination city, as I already said. So the Las Vegas LAS airport, the former McCarran, now the Harry S. Reid International Airport. It also works in the other direction. It's an easy city to depart. When I was working with Intel, I was traveling well over 80% of the time. I marked Carousel 19 and Terminal 3 as my work address for Google Maps. That sounds silly, but hey, Google Maps will tell you what your commute time is from home to work. So I always knew how long it would take to get to, approximately how long it would take to get to the airport to catch a flight. So it's very easy to get in and out of the airport if you don't travel on Friday and Monday. It's still not horrible if it's not a holiday or some big event, but it's an easy place to get out of. So if you want to meet your core team somewhere else, if you want to meet clients, customers, if you want to follow up on meetings where they were here and then you want to go to them, I used to do this all the time. How many times did I go to Ireland or around the US or to France or to Rome or various other places? So it's a very easy place to leave. And then when you go to other places and you tell people that you live in Las Vegas, everybody wants to hear the story. So it's a great story to tell. It's always an opportunity to engage with people about what you are doing, but also where you're doing it, and to, of course, invite them. Next time they're in town, you'll show them the best place to do this, that, or the other. And I actually do get contacted, even now, from former colleagues. What should I do when I'm in Vegas? Coming to Vegas for the first time, what should I do? Where should I go? Any suggestions? So having that insight is valuable. It's a good way to engage with people beyond your actual endeavors. Add a little add a little color to the conversation. Now for the fun part, the threats, the T. There are a few. There are not many. If you're an entrepreneur here, you're not really facing a ton of competition. Like if you're opening a restaurant here, that's different. But even then, you're still probably in a better situation than if you're in many other places. The food scene here, the foodie scene, given the number of tourists that are coming here from different places, there are opportunities to do something new and interesting, to be innovative in this food space, and you'll get exposure to a lot of people. And I said earlier that the local media doesn't really cover entrepreneurialism, but I was wrong about that, because if you're opening a restaurant, you will get coverage. If you're opening it downtown, you'll get social media coverage from the downtown crowd, DTLV on Instagram, local foodies if it's a restaurant. There's always a bar scene. You open a new bar with something new downtown, and if you have friends in the industry, you will get coverage, you will get attention, you'll get social media engagement, etc. So the things that are missing here, though, are sometimes a challenge if you're not doing those regular businesses. And so the threat set is small, in my opinion. Aside from lacking capital, that's like a glaring weakness that could be a threat depending on where you are in your financial plan. But I'm going to say that one of the threats here is actually poaching. That is to say, if you come here with your team and you're doing something novel, but your team has the skills that other people need and they can't find those skills, if you are part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and I will use this in quotes, community, it is entirely possible that, someone might say, hey, do you want to work on a side project? Do you want to, so it's just something to be aware of. That's a potential threat. If somebody has something more interesting, there's always a chance that your success in capturing a team and their attention and their focus will draw others to your team. I've not really seen it a lot, but it's possible. I mean, I've seen it a little bit here and there, but mostly there isn't. Let me put it this way. I spoke to a graduating engineer at our local university, and I said, so what are your plans? He said, well, all the good engineers. Right away, you're like, oh, I'm sorry I asked. All the good engineers go to Silicon Valley or to Austin, but I'm staying here. I was like, oh, that sounds horrible. Like, what's the matter? It's like, well, I'm just me. So he didn't have a high. It was he. So he didn't really have a strong opinion of himself, but it is possible that people, when they come here, will realize that they have a commodity that is rare here. If they have talent, the skill to use it, and so on. So poaching, possible threat. On the other end of that spectrum, the culture of innovation is in a strong need of cultivation. And it may leave your fellow entrepreneurs and even you disinterested in what you are doing. And I say you, I mean, you may lose interest if you find that you're not getting traction, if people are unimpressed. As I think I said this already, that sometimes you'll hear people say, yeah, do that. Let me know when you're done. If I didn't say that, that does happen. The number of times I've heard people say, that's a great idea, good luck with that, when I'm trying to get people to participate in things. It can be a little bit demoralizing. And that really is a threat to your short-term and long-term success if you yourself or members of your team cannot stay focused, cannot stay motivated, cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, however you want to view it. So on the one hand, people may try to poach your talent. On the other hand, they may just try to tell them directly, not spitefully, not with nefarious intent, but they may paint a picture that is not so rosy. I cannot emphasize enough that access to capital is the thing that everybody chants when they're in a position of, access to capital. Do you know how I can get capital? Where can I get capital? I need more capital. So if that becomes a demoralizing factor, it's something to consider, and that could threaten your success in the near term. By the way, there's a huge difference between pointing out weakness, as we did in the W block, pointing out weakness and crossing your arms and saying, or on the other hand, pointing out weakness and saying they are opportunities. I think you know where I am. The third item in my T block, funding sources, VC firms, other non-government, you can get grant money, that's different. But if you find a VC funding, or if you're in a later round, or if you're in a seed round even, so wherever you are on your funding journey, if you are on it, they might be interested in funding you. And they may have strings attached, and that one of those strings may be pulling you ever so gently but constantly to Sand Hill Road, to somewhere in Austin, to somewhere in Denver, somewhere in Utah, somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere in the Middle East. Who knows? So if your funding sources do not see value in being in, trying to continue your pursuits in the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem that is Vegas today, the greater Vegas area today, then a threat to your near-term future certainly could be any assessment that results in either you move or you don't get the money. That is a story I've heard as well. I've had brief conversations with VC people here and there. There is something of a concern about the strength of the network and the resource availability, the ability to hire people, really. That's the bottom line there. The ability to pursue a successful startup in certain areas. That's not universal, obviously. It depends on who you talk to. It depends on what their investment is. It depends on how they judge the market and the needs of their investment and so on. But it's something to be aware of. So that's my list. I myself have a couple of different startup type projects. I'm more of a bootstrapper / lifestyle business person, so I'm not really pursuing funding. My days of pursuing funding for startups when I was in Silicon Valley are happily behind me. I would rather have fun. If I can sound a little bit glib, I'd rather have fun what I'm doing, not chase money around so much. Now, I love money. I would love to be paid. I already mentioned the buy me a coffee. You are more than welcome to buy me a coffee if you like. But at the end of the day, once you have investors, once you have to face some of these threats I mentioned about people maybe poaching your team or people becoming disenchanted with the greater Vegas area because it's certainly not Utah. It's certainly not Silicon Valley. It's not Austin. I say Utah because there's a couple of different places that are leaning into Silicon Valley. Tempe, Chandler in central Arizona has chip fabs. It is legitimately a potential next Silicon Valley, right? One time when I worked at Intel before I was an employee, I was a contractor at Intel in Chandler, had a chip fab, and they were building another chip fab. And TSMC is building a chip fab. So if you have real interest in being in the next Silicon Valley, don't sell Central Arizona, Central Phoenix metropolitan area short. So there's always a chance that if you're trying to accomplish big things in Vegas, the hill may be steep. It may not be one that everyone wants to climb. But for myself, I find the strengths that I listed. I think the number of people coming here, if you're doing anything novel that benefits from online interaction, information sharing, the advent of like generally available artificial intelligence tools, not artificial general intelligence, but the ability to build and even innovate now in these early days in the AI space means that you have an opportunity to expose your ideas, your novel pursuits to a great many people from a great many walks of life. The National Association of Broadcasters, obviously the Consumer Electronics Show, the Kitchen and Bath Industry Show, the Construction Show, the Concrete Show, SEMA, any number of gun shows, any number of rodeo and country western music and food. There's a pizza festival. So if you're doing something interesting, it is almost a certainty that a non-trivial number of people will be visiting sometime during the year who would love to know that you exist and to be able to run into you and talk to you and learn what you're doing. And if you're already here, I just was emailing with someone from Chicago and they said, well, safe travels for CES. And I said, I just have to jump on a public transit bus and shoot down to the convention center. I don't have to deal with parking. I don't have to deal with rooms or hotels. Hotel rooms or the airport or anything. So my end is super easy. So access to those 40 million people, I cannot stress the value of that if you are able to take advantage. As well, there's just too many, well, let me put it this way, because it kind of is the same but different. I was referring to initially there to people who are probably interested in what you're doing because of the reason they're coming to Vegas. So if they're coming here for NAB and you're building something that is in the audio or video production space, if you're doing something in smart kitchens or surfacing technologies, etc. The construction show, the kitchen and bath show. These are people that are probably already interested before they get here. But the other side of that coin, just looking at the 40 million-ish that come here, another story when I was a sophomore in high school. So recently, our teacher, Terry Fields, was a recent Teacher of the Year. She was an interesting character. There's still vocabulary words that are impossible to forget. But she had a fun story. She started her career by writing teenage romance novels, because a teacher back in whenever that was, it was hard to make ends meet. So she started writing teenage romance novels to get through school and to begin her teaching career. So when she was going to publish her first one, she was living in the Phoenix area at the time. This is where I went to high school as well. So as she was telling us in the class, she said, I had my first novel, written. I don't know if teenage romance novel is a novel, but that's not for me. She said, I had it written, and before they would publish it, the publishing company wanted me to survey my demographic, the readership that I was aiming for. It's for something. She didn't go into detail on what the survey was, but they wanted her to somehow take it upon herself, not quite yet making the big bucks as a school teacher, to engage her demographic population in some way to figure out what their interests were. Was her book targeting the right interest areas at the time? Who knows? So again, as she's telling the story, she says, I didn't really know what to do. And then it occurred to me, we're going to Disneyland. Now at the time, today, I think they've changed some things. I think they just recently announced line tickets or virtual lines. But back in my day, you would go to Disneyland or Disney World and you would wait in line. You would go on a ride, and then you would go wait in another line, and you'd go on a ride, and you'd wait in another line. So a good 50 to 75% of your time at Disney World or Land was spent waiting in line to go on one of the rides. So she said, we went through the gate. I went up and down the different lines on different rides. I talked to hundreds of people in my demographic, basically teenage girls, got her surveys answered, submitted to the publisher. She was on her way. So there's a similar value proposition here in Vegas. I think that's the other part of the strength of the 40 million people. So on the one hand, certain particular verticals. People are coming here for particular trade shows or particular interests. And then there's the general population of visitors that could become potential customers, potential clients. They could bring back not a virus, but they could bring back viral marketing of the product that they saw here and bring it back. I do know one colleague of mine in Italy was here with his company one time at Bandcamp. They set up a booth with a couple of other companies near the D on Fremont. So this is in downtown under the Viva Vision, the brightly lighted canopy with all the graphics and loud music sometimes. And as people were walking by, they invited them to try out, in their case, their product was some noise-canceling headphones, but they had mock-ups so that they wanted to try fit, not function, but fit. So they had different sizes, and you would do a little quick survey, like, I found this one to be better. They would measure your head. So kind of the same thing that Mrs. Fields was doing with her survey. You have a ton of people. They just happen to be walking by. Could be on the Strip, could be downtown, could be in Summerlin, could be the Arts District, could be in Henderson, could be anywhere. Pick your spot, and people will walk by you from all over. It's a great opportunity to expose what you're working on. Keep it clean. I don't know what you're just thinking there. Whatever you're working on may benefit by showing other people from near and far and getting them excited about it. I will end that thread and soon this entire audio episode with yet another story. It was during a accelerator cohort here in Vegas. A individual from Toronto had a product that he was going to sell through salon. So go to any of the resorts on the Strip, and there is at least one salon. You can go in there and spend the day at the spa. I don't mean a hair salon. I mean a place where you hang out, spend the day, chat with your friends, hair, spa, saunas, whatever. I don't even know what's going on in there. It's a deep mystery. So his product was to be sold through there. So he didn't even tell me about this. I said, okay, let me guess. You started at one end of the Strip. You go to each location. You drop off a sample. They call you the next day. Can I get a case of this? And then a week later, they're like, we're going to need a lot more of this. And he's like, you nailed it. So if you have an opportunity to expose what you're working on to people here visiting from all over, they will return home and they may just call you. So that's probably, if I was going to pick one thing that would offset all the, what I could call negatives, I guess, the one thing that you don't find anywhere else. You don't find it in Silicon Valley. You don't find it in Austin. You might find it in Austin during South by Southwest for that week. You may find it during, what is it, ATV, something? That other week, the musical. Anytime there's a musical festival there, you may get it. But 52 weeks a year in the Vegas area, there are people coming here from all over. So I would put that as with double underscores in red in this S box. 40 million tourists or visitors cannot be wrong. So that's where I'll leave it for now. If you have a SWOT story, if you have a list of things that either are any of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats, if you are considering starting your company or moving your company to Vegas, if you're wondering how you can hire people and convince them to come to Vegas, I would offer them visiting Vegas. Don't move their family here first. I've already heard those bad stories too. But if there are things that you would love to talk about into 2024, I'm hoping to actually get, now that I've set the tone with more of these solo episodes, I'm hoping that people will latch on to some of these ideas. We are coming up on the end of the year. If you're listening to this before or during the winter solstice, well, it's the winter solstice has officially ended. The days are already getting longer, as is this episode. Well, I hope you're doing something more fun. But thank you for listening. And we have 2 more shows, I believe it is. No, one more. One more until the official end of the year. So probably the 29th of December will be the final show of 2023. We'll kick off a whole new year, and hopefully we'll have some interesting news regarding the Downtown Project retrospective, the introspective that we'll be running in parallel to assess our current modern day entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. And I would very much like to have some of our guests on from earlier in this season to revisit for part 2 of a few conversations based on what we've all learned. So thank you very much. Happy holidays, whichever ones you celebrate. The winter solstice is done and is gone. It's in the past. The next one coming up, only a year away. Thank you, and Happy New Year.